Dennis Carey is a senior SQL Server database administrator and also a Microsoft Azure database administrator with extensive experience. And he's going to be taking us on migration of on-prem databases to Azure. So Dr. Dennis, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Can you guys hear me well? Trying to put myself well here.
Yes,
all
we
right.
can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah, sure, we can.
All right. So let me share my screen here. All right. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right. All right, guys. Good morning. Thank you, Moses, for this brilliant initiative. I've learned a lot since this morning, and it's a whole weekend packed with so many good topics that I'm very much happy to learn from. I'm so happy to be part of the MPIT community, community where we jealously share all the informations to help everyone grow in the field. So I'm going to continue talking about what we've talked about today. Apparently today's session is seriously focused on the cloud. And just like Moses earlier mentioned, we are moving to the cloud. It's not longer a question of if, there's a question of when you finally decide you want to make that journey. And I hope that today's sessions will help you think in that direction, and also eventually start looking at some of the technologies that can help you understand this new revolution. So a lot has been said, so I had to literally take out so many slides that I had in here so that I don't repeat a lot of things that we've already talked about. The introductions, all the different cloud technologies and the concept has been introduced. So my focus today is just to briefly give you an idea on what to look for when you are planning your cloud migration journey. And for most of you that are still new in this field, this is some of the things that you will get your hands dirty on once you hit the road and you start doing things in the cloud. So I have very little theory to give you. Most of the time that I have here will really be focused on the hands-on lab, so that you actually have a deep dive understanding on how to really do these things. I'll be very slow to make sure everybody understands it. Feel free to stop me and ask questions. I hope that I'm not going to run out of my time, Micah. So, okay, so migration, right? What is really migration? So a migration actually involves a movement of resources. You could be moving these resources from an on-premises environment, and this could involve maybe from a VMware, a Hyper-V. It could also be a database. It could be an application, a web app, from an on-premises environment to the cloud. All right, so, and when we talk about migration, it involves so many different things. I mean, right now we have already a lot of private clouds that are out there, but sometimes companies just decide that they are done with it. It costs them a lot. It may be cheaper to move to the cloud and leverage some of the technologies as you guys have heard in previous presentations. So we have providers like Rackspace. You could be moving from maybe another cloud provider like AWS to Microsoft Azure, or just moving from your on-premise environment to the cloud. So, and for this presentation today, I'm going to limit the migrations strictly on the PaaS basis, without going into all the other tools like migrating virtual machines, migrating web apps, so I can make the presentation smooth and understandable for you. So when we talk about migration, it involves so many things, right? A migration could involve moving servers. In this case here, we are talking about, hold on here, let me get this out of the way. Okay, so it could actually just means you simplify your migrations to the cloud. by moving all your virtual machines. These virtual machines could be running on a Linux server or Windows server, and you just want to move them to the cloud. Um, um, it could also mean migrating, creating virtual desktop, the VDIs in the cloud, where your company wants to migrate all your virtual desktop to Azure for easy management. You could create multi-sessions, and it's better for the company to work on that way. And especially for support for remote data service environments. So you could actually think about that way, not only servers, but also virtual desktop infrastructures. And as well as databases, you could actually enable a seamless migration with minimal downtime of your databases from multiple data sources. And in this case here, Microsoft Azure offers you the option to migrate database data sources like MySQL, Cassandra. You could also migrate also from Oracle and all these different data sources to an Azure data platform. So all these options are available for you. Now you also have the possibility that your company might just decide to create a dev or test environment in the cloud to reduce operational costs by providing just a test dev environment where a developer could work on in building their codes and for all development work, as well as just on ordinary web apps that were running previously on-premise. The decision could be made to move them to the cloud. So all these different resources falls under migrations, and once you make that decision to migrate, you are forced to make a decision on what resources need to be migrated, what resources need to be remain in the cloud and on-premise, and which one will migrate, and also what are the cost factors involved when you do the migration. And I hear this a lot currently where I work. We've been involved in so many different projects where we actually have to make a decision if web apps should sit on-premise or they should sit in the cloud. And you also have to think about the cost factor when you have different resources sitting on different environments. We had a situation where one of our web app was actually sitting on-premise and on in cloud, and the database servers were actually on-premise, and the movement of data in and out was causing the company a lot of issues, as well as latency issue because of the tunnel was being overcrowded at really peak hours. And the company actually decided that the best option, cost effective with the best performance method will be to literally migrate the database and host everything in the cloud. So all these decisions has to be made when you have to take a decision if you should migrate or not. And when we think about migration, the next thing that comes in mind is, can we actually trust Microsoft Azure or any cloud provider with our data, right? But my presentation today is focused mostly on the Microsoft cloud provider. All the other cloud provider that we know, as you heard from the previous presentations, we have Amazon Web Services, we have Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud, and so many other cloud providers that are out there that you can leverage. But then the question that most traditional companies have in mind, most of their concern is always, are we safe when the data is out there? Well, talking about Microsoft, I can actually tell you that Microsoft has a lot of certificates or certificates that actually that they have to go through a scrutiny to make sure that your data is protected. Right? There's a lot of regulations based on regional level, industry, and global level. As you could see here, the ISO 2707, you have the global level, Microsoft has all these different certifications. So every company every country that Microsoft finds itself in, if there are any regulations that needs to pass, for example, here you have the German, what is this one called? Grundschutz workbook, German IT Grundschutz workbook, which is actually a law that protects the sharing of personal information data. We have in Canada privacy law, India. So almost every country that enforces this IT privacy law has their regulations and their certifications out there for you to pass before you can provide cloud services to them. And Microsoft is proud partner to have most of these certifications. We all know that Microsoft has, though not the biggest cloud provider, has one of the many regions around the world. They have 52 as of today. Recently, we just got two data centers set up in South Africa South and South Africa North. So you are pretty covered all over the world. And if you listen to Moses talk when he talked about Azure load balancer, where traffic is then rerouted to the closest data center. So all these different technologies are out there to make sure that once you move to the cloud, you don't have to worry about performance as well as network that might come as a result of network latency and so on. Well, some of these regions are here have their prices that, if you looked at what Joe presented today on pricing calculator, those pricing calculators are actually functions of the region in which you actually deploy. But you can actually make your decision on what region you want to deploy your resources based on price, because network latency might also be a factor that you don't want to compromise. So those are all the things that you have to think of when you're doing this. Now, what is it actually used for? What are the uses of the cloud? Well, you want to keep your business secure and compliant, right? You know that most of the cloud providers, they have to go through a series of compliance to operate. So keeping your business secured and compliant could be one of the uses why you want to use the cloud. You could also unlock potential connecting devices. Nowadays, almost the 40 to 50%, I mean, maybe a little bit more of the world population is interconnected somehow, maybe through mobile devices, through social networking and all those kinds of things. Now, there's a huge market that is out there that you can tap into. Right, so cloud services provides you the opportunity to unlock all those different potential and gain insight into different business ideas that you might not have ever thought of. Now, we know that there's a lot of targeting advertisement, but this is all through business intelligence and analytics that helps you to do that. And nowadays we have a lot of spin-up companies that literally don't need a capital expenditure because they move to the cloud. Like Joe talked about it. You keep away all that infrastructure costs that normally that you normally get involved when you are setting up a new company from scratch, and you need to literally buy all the servers, get the IT team, set up all those things without making a dime. So with cloud services, you keep that away because the cloud provider takes care of that, and then you only pay for the resources that you use. Right, so helps you to grow business, help people that actually don't have a huge capital, initial capital, to still be in business and provide their services. Well, it also could be used to create new applications and digital services. Take the next leap in the artificial intelligence world. I mean, we all hear of serverless driving cars coming up and all these kinds of new artificial intelligence that requires robust computers becomes quite difficult to do that at an individual level. So you might want to leverage technologies from the big guys that are already out there and doing the things for years, and they master it well. We could store backup and recovery data. A lot of companies nowadays move to the cloud just for the DR purposes, right? They have their on-premise, they use the so-called hybrid model, as the previous presenter showed you, and they just use the recovery model to literally make good use of the cloud environment just for the DR. Or you could actually use it just to analyze data and make predictions, future predictions that will help you run your business successfully. So some of these are the uses that you see why people would decide they either want to move to the cloud or not, right? And what are some of the benefits that we actually do when we're migrating? Well, three major things: time, confidence, and performance, right? So very important things that will make your decision to move to the cloud. Well, if you look at time, so new servers are available within minutes. Right. Initially, for all traditional way of doing things, provisioning a virtual machine, you will have to, first of all, go shop for one, buy the software, buy the network cable, have to link them up, get the network engineers to head up all the virtual machine, buy licenses for VMware or whatever license you need, and then you create your virtual machine, right? But all that take months in planning and to execution. But nowadays with cloud technology, you get a virtual machine in less than 15 minutes. You have a virtual machine up, running, and you can start your business. So it cuts down all that time that you need to get all this in place. All right. Global reliability scale with so-called Cosmos database, Cosmos DB, which helps you to reroute your data to the closest data center available through Cosmos DB. So you can actually deploy Cosmos DB and have your customers any part of the world and sit anywhere. So you don't have to literally set up a data center in that location that is close to your customer. It also reduced the time consuming IT chores and Azure monitor. So it also, all the time that you spend on all this IT related stuff, you reduce them when you move to the when you choose the cloud concept. Now, at the level of confidence, it ensures business continuity. Like I said, some companies would decide to go with Azure site disaster recovery. Just that's the only thing they will need, but then which helps them to ensure business continuity. And most of the resources that are provided with by Microsoft Azure has up to 99.95. That's the minimum. You can even go all the way to 99.916 nines, which goes all the way translated in seconds or milliseconds. That's roughly 3.5 microseconds downtime in entire year, depending on what kind of resources you are deploying. Right. So you can Microsoft can guarantee you that you will have some good business continuity, and so you have confidence to move your data. So it mitigates risks with Azure Security Center and compliance certificates, right? Like I said, there's a lot of certificates involved, and they have to go through tedious compliance. So you know that the risk factor is mitigated by choosing them. And you have over 450 global regions that you can actually choose for and spread across all the 50 plus data centers that they have. So migrating your applications to the cloud, we have to think about several different things, right? The flexible migration option with hybrid model support, because Microsoft offers you the opportunity to support a hybrid environment. You can start the migration process gradually by going through the hybrid model. Sometimes companies might choose the hybrid model because of certain regulations that have some data that cannot be put in a public cloud, and they'll be forced to have a hybrid model. Or just on the initial phase where they are still testing out things, they still want their business to continue, they can have some of their databases run on-prem for their production environment and still set up a testing environment in the cloud, and they test those things. When they're quite comfortable, then they can then move it to the cloud. And they have the option where you can actually sync your Active Directory, like Moses talked about, through Azure AD Connect, where you can sync your on-prem Active Directory. You can sign once you move to the cloud. You don't really need to build a new Active Directory for your environment. And you could also have this flexible model applies also across the app, the Windows admins, and so on. I said it's already cost effective throughout the entire migration journey, because you have the option to choose what type of a deployment model you want. You could actually go with a reserve VM instance, which saves you significant amount of money when you choose that, depending on if you're going for 1 or 3 years reserve instance. You have a lot of free tools that you can actually get started. Like we talk about it, $200 for every single one that signs up. You get a free $200 that you can use. And still within the 12 months, there are still a lot of free tools that you can leverage to test. So this actually helps throughout the migration journey to make it seamless and cost effective. High confidence and lower risks in migration. There are most of the cloud companies provide you a dedicated team that actually helps you in the migration. Microsoft has what they call Azure Migration Center, and they also have partners that actually help you in the migration. So just today you want to do the migration, you know that you have a lot of help out there that will help you throughout the journey and make sure that your migration is accomplished successfully. And we have also customer satisfaction that reports what happens when they move to the cloud. And you can see here, this clearly shows you here that for those that choose infrastructure as a service, which means virtual machines that are in the cloud, you get a 435% in return of investment. All right, so just the cost savings and the turnover by just moving to the cloud, as well as a 466% return of investment when you go through the platform as a service migration services. So all this just tells you, if this you have these reports out there and you have all this level of confidence, it shows you that indeed, migrating to the cloud, it's a journey that most companies are looking forward, and they will eventually be do it sooner or later. All right. So in the migration journey, we have three major different stages. We have the assessment stage. We have the migration, the actual migration stage, and then the optimization stage. All right. During the assessment stage, we looked at you're looking at all the different roadblocks that might stop you from migrating, because migration involves a lot of planning, and you want to make sure that when you eventually start the migration and you deploy the resources, that it's successful. Right, so you do a lot of assessment, and once it passes the assessment, then you are quite sure that you can actually do the migration. And once you do the migration, you might want to optimize, look at the resource utilization. Did I over provision resources for this particular database? Is it under provision? Do I need to do some tuning here? Is it working the best performance? So optimization is a very critical stage post migration, once you're done with the migration. And there are so many different tools that you will use in doing the migration. And I'm just one particular tool that a lot of companies uses is Azure Migrate. All right, so it's easily discovers all your virtual machines, VMs, and applications, including rich service dependency mapped, and it gives you all an assessment. It gives you load assessment and tells you exactly if the resources are they are ready for migration or not. So this is actually very good if you want to migrate your Windows servers as well as your Linux server to Azure. right? Azure Migrate is a very good tool for that. I'm going to come back to a little bit other tools that we'll be using. So far, you have Azure Migrate, you have Data Migration Assistant that you can use for that. You have direct deployment to the cloud that you can actually use. And there's so many different technologies that are out there, either inbuilt integrated tools or from external users that you can actually leverage. Now, on the pre-migration, we talked about the fact we can use Azure Migrate, and during the migration, you could also go with Azure Site Migration, and post-migration, we were talking about optimization, cost optimization. We could leverage Azure Cost Management to optimize the cost, because migration to the cloud is good, but it can actually run your company bankrupt if you don't do it right. So you have to be very, very careful and make sure that you optimize the resources so that whatever gets migrated is using the right resources with the allocated prices, right? Now, I talked about the fact that Microsoft offers you Azure Migration Center, which provides you guidance and tools for migrations. It helps you, it builds a case for you. Anyone that wants to do the migration, they can do an assessment for you in your environment. They can identify the right migration strategies and then optimize your cloud resources. And then you can connect you to migration expert out there that will help you make sure that your migration journey is as smooth as possible. So all these different tools are out there for you to really leverage. Now, these are the other tools that I talked about. During the assessment, you can decide what tools you really want to use. Right? We have Azure Migrate, we have Data Migration Assistant, you have SQL Server Migration Assistant, and you could use Azure Site Recovery, Data Migration Services, Azure Data Box, as well as Azure Security and Cost Management after migration. Right? So these are all the different tools, and there are so many different partners that Microsoft has partnered with that you can actually use them for your migration. So, and all these different partners, their main focus is really on helping clients, Microsoft clients, to have a seamless migration to the cloud. Right? So that's so far what I plan to talk, especially when it comes to the theoretical part. This is just a snip from Microsoft side, which really shows you the different tools, that integrated tools that Microsoft has. You don't really need to use external partners. You can actually leverage Microsoft tools for your migration. So the remaining part of the class, I'm going to just use it for lab. And these are the labs that we'll be talking about today. Well, we will be using a SQL Server database, migrating a SQL Server database by just using direct deployment method. We're going to use a replication to migrate databases to the cloud as your migration choice. And if time permits, we'll do a backup through a backpack file, backup and restore. We'll back it up to a storage account, and then we import it to our environment in the cloud. Right? Any questions before I get my lab environment ready here? So please. Let me get this one here. Feel free to ask questions if you have any. Oh, come on, where is this not moving? Okay. All right. So
guys, if you have any question, let us know. You can type the question if you don't want to speak, or if your background is kind of noisy, you can just type the question. Michael can read it out. If you don't have, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So for some reason my mouse keep shit. Let me make sure I have everything connected. Okay. All right. So I have my SSMS pull up here, and I'm going to pull a couple of okay. All right. Okay. So I have here my on-premise SSMS, and I'm going to go ahead and connect to, I do have already an account. So I'm going to go ahead and sign up to my account. Maybe you have to cancel this, open it again. So okay. There you go. So let me sign it into my own personal account. So all right. So you can see here is my personal account, is my plain environment. I got no resources. One good thing that you do with Azure is the resources can be really cost intensive. So I always make sure at the end of every practice session that I go ahead and delete my resources, right? But so that's why you don't see any resources here. So the goal is to quickly just go ahead and deploy a database to the cloud. And for me to do that, I'm not going to go forward to do what others have done. I already have here a couple of resource groups that I've already created that I can use for this migration journey. So I have one here, a resource group here called migration resource group that I can use. So first thing first, I need to make sure that I have a server, right? If I decide I want to migrate a database, let's just say a database, for example, I have a database in here that I need to migrate to the cloud. What do I really have to do in order to make sure that the database is migrated, right? So I'm just going to quickly create an empty database for you. I can create an empty database, which I'm using this just for the purpose of the migration. But when I use other tools like Data Migration Assistant, I would like to use an existing database that can actually do some pre-migration assessment so we can see that. So let's say I have a database called tests here. I create a database, and this database sits on-premise, and I need to move this database to the cloud. Well, this database, I want to move it to the cloud as a platform as a service, meaning I'm moving it to a Microsoft Azure SQL database, right? You know that based on previous presentation. It needs to sit on a logical computer, which means we need to create a logical server that will host that database. Because on-premise here, we have every single database that we see here sit on an instance. And for us to do this, replicate the same thing, I need to have a logical server in the cloud. So I'll go in here and I'm going to create, I'll just use a GUI so far to do all this. I can just type here server, and then I have SQL servers. The good thing in the cloud is that servers are free. Microsoft doesn't charge you for the servers. The only charge you're going to incur is a cost for the database, for running the database. So you can create servers and just keep them there for free without anyone charging you for. So I'm going to use this, my resource group that I created called a migration resource group. And I'm just going to create a server. And for fully domain qualified name for every server, it's always going to be the server name .database.windows.net. So for this database here, I'm just going to call it MPIT data server. And it checks to make sure the server is available. And I can go ahead and select which region. We know we have over 50 regions that we can select. I choose the region and I choose the the admin name. For every single server that you create, there's always going to be the server admin. If you look at it based on the on-premise scenario, this is more like the sysadmin for that particular server. And you can only have one server admin for the server. When you create a server, you have the option to deploy an Active Directory administrator. There you have the option to create multiple ones by creating groups and assigning them, which I'm going to show you later on. But for here, I'm just going to create a server, which use a server with a student as the admin, and the password, our usual password one, right? And then confirm the password. I use a password one. And networking, I know Joe already, I think with Moses already talked extensive on all this. You allow resources to connect to access this. If I check yes, am I able to take backups on this? Let me go one step back. Okay, so that was it. All right. So, and I can just review it and create. You can see it says here, no extra charge. So this resource is free of charge. So we create this resource, and this resource is an empty container, a logical container that has no database in it, right? So, which means it's free of charge for us. We can literally just have it there sitting in the cloud with no additional cost. Now, I have my database that sits here that needs to be migrated to the cloud. What are the different options? I have different options that I can use for migrating this database. So while this is deploying, I'm just going to quickly get the adventures work restored on this instance, just so that I can use it for the next exercise. Apparently the laptop that I wanted to use it for just started acting up before I started, so I had to switch laptop. So okay, let me get this. I can actually just go online and get Adventures Work 2019 database. All right, it looks like it's already available. Okay, so let me just quickly get this downloaded. All right. All right, so let me bring this back here. Deployment completed. So if I check here under my SQL servers, I do have a server that has been created for this deployment model. And on this server, we have here has a server admin as a student, and it has name is MPIT.database.windows.net. Right? So making a connection to the server, I'll need to make sure the firewall rules are enabled, because the firewall will block connection to the turn on and add the client firewall. You can see here, firewall rules are not yet enabled. So if I try to connect to this, it will not let me connect, right? So I can just decide and try directly here and paste the name. No, I didn't copy it. Let me go back here. And then I copy the name of the server. And then I try to connect to it, a student, and then the password. So for the enterprise environment, you see here we're connecting using the SQL Server authentication. But for most enterprises, you have this feature, multi-factor authentication enabled. Moses talked about that at the beginning, where you authenticate via the Azure Active Directory, and through your company email, you will be able to connect. But for this purpose here, we're going to use just the SQL Server authentication for the connection. And then it's a password 1. And when I click connect, it tells me the firewall role is not enabled. So it's either I enable it here through this option here on firewall, and I add the client IP, or if my account has elevated privileges to whitelist these IP addresses, I can go through this option, which will require me to sign in to my account, and then from my account, I'll be able to Outlook. .com. I'll be able to, because I am the admin of this account, I will be able to whitelist the IP address. See, I have multi-factor authentication. Actually, let me get my phone.
Hey guys, so
okay, so I just approved it via multi-factor authentication on my phone, and it allows me to sign in. Right now, it wants me to add these IP addresses. So this is one way of doing it. You could as well done it through the other method, and then it allows me to sign in. You can see the server is empty. It has no database on it. And right now we have a server available, no database, but we have our database sitting here on-premise that we want to migrate to. So I can literally use the simplest method, which is just direct deployment. I could just go on tasks and say, deploy this database to Microsoft Azure. Well, one thing you have to pay attention is that this method only works for very small databases. So if you are dealing with terabytes of database, this method will not work, right? It's not effective method for you to do. So that's why I try to do a couple of different methods so you can see, because not every method will work for the choice for your decision. All right, so we select this. So it opens a wizard for migration, and here it asks you to connect to a server. That's why you need to create a server first. So I can now click connect and provide the same credentials to connect to the server. Password. All right, and it will connect. So you can see here, Joe talked about a different pricing tier for applications. The temporary files will be saved locally as a backpack file for you on your local machine. But then you're migrating to the server. The database name is this. If I want to change the name, I have the option. I can rename the database here, but I'm going to maintain that. And you also have the different pricing tiers that exist out here. For the sake of, I'm just going to select the basic pricing. I can even go for the standard just so that it's a little bit faster. And then the standard gives you up to 1 terabyte in size, but I'm just going to maintain this one. And you have these different levels, all right? So I'll just go with the S2 just so that it's a little bit faster. Next. And that's it, guys. As simple as that, right? Finish. So it's going to deploy it directly to the cloud. So while this is going on, let me just make sure I get my Ventures work downloaded. I think it's done right now. So let me copy this to the server. All right, so I have the file here downloaded. So I can copy this file, copy it, and bring it to inside this server so I can use it. So I have a little bit of time, so feel free to interrupt me. Just make sure the questions are not so many. 1 or 2 questions is fine.
For the moment, there's a question in the chat that says, please, can you show everyone the other ways of adding the IP?
Oh, the other ways of adding the IP address. Okay, yes, please. So here you can see that the server IP that I just added via the other method. If I come back here now and go to, sorry, let me go back here and I go overview and show firewall settings. You see that this firewall now has been added, but it's as simple as clicking here, add client IP. If I know your IP address right now, I can just put XYZ IP address here, and then I go in here and add the IP manually, right? So that's the other way. When you do that, make sure you save. When you save that, that individual with that particular IP address will now be able to access, provided you have the username and password. That's some of the things that most companies nowadays are refusing to allow this public access and making it possible that users can only connect to the resources via an internal virtual network. You know, so that's some of the things that you need to be aware. If your company will not allow you to access via an external network or a public network like what we've just done right now, I can also show you another method if I have time, where you can actually create a virtual network, create a virtual machine, and from the virtual machine inside the same network, you can now connect to the resources, right? Okay, cool. Let me get this here now.
There's another question in the chat. I don't know if you want to pick that up now or later.
If it's long, I will do it later, but what is it? Can you read
I think
for
it's
me, please?
related still with the IP. So it says, can you please show everyone the auto, no, sorry. Can you share what happens if you are using a VM and the IP is not accessible to the local client? Can you throw more light on that?
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted everybody to
Yes.
what happens if it's a, you know, usually you just click on add client IP, it adds the local IP. So I want to explain to the people what happens if you you want to connect to a particular VM that is not really your local.
Okay, yes. So back here on the portal, you can use so many different ways to do that. I'm just using the simplest way that everyone will understand using the portal. You can do this also with PowerShell, but literally here, when you click on add client IP, it picks up the client IP address, but this does, you can literally remove this, right? And you manually type in the IP address that you want to. Let's say, for example, you have a certain subnet range of IP addresses that you want, that every single IP within this subnet, let's say, for example, 10 dot, let me just say IP like 10.0.1.2 for all the way to, let's say, the same IP address range. So this is under the same subnet. I can decide that I want every IP that falls under this range to be able to connect. So if your VM has IP falls within this range, because it has already been added under this, it will allow you to connect, right? But here, once you click add client IP, it automatically pick up your IP address, but you can literally change it if you, by doing this. Once you do that, make sure you click save for that to take effect. All right? Okay, so in the meantime, this is almost done with the deployment. So, and I have also my adventures work already moved here. So I will just quickly go in here and restore so I can use it for the other method. Restore. Let me just restore that. Okay, I have it here. This might not work. This is SQL Server 2016. 19 will not work. It will not work. Let me see. Yeah, it's too. Let me see. Is it 2016? Yeah, it's 2016. I downloaded the wrong one. I should have downloaded 2016 actually. Sorry, guys. Let me just get the 2016. Yeah, 2016. That's what I should have got. All right. So why this is happening, I'm hoping that it's almost done. That's almost there. All right. So once done and you have your database migrated. But one thing I wanted to quickly show you before this is, while I'm waiting for that to finish, is here you have the option that server has one server admin, and you have the Active Directory admin, which is not configured. Well, in Azure, you have just like on-prems where you can go to your Active Directory. If I go to my Azure Active Directory, you can check and see that you have groups and users. So every one that is part of the company will have a name here as a user, as well as you can create groups, right? You can have a group of users. So we can create, let's say you have a couple of DBAs that need access to be the Active Directory admin on the server. You can create a group like this and then give that group, make the group, put all the members of that group in here, and literally go back to the server. And instead of giving a single individual as the Active Directory admin here, we could just go ahead and set the group as the Active Directory. So all those 5 members that are part of this DBA team will become Active Directory users. When you save it, it saves it, and that's the only way you can do it, right? So that's some of the things that you can do with SQL servers when they're sitting. I don't know why I took a little. Why this is taking this long. Okay, so just not to spend time without doing anything, the next method that I wanted to show you here is Azure Data Migration Assistant. And you have Data Migration Assistant here as a tool which you can download. It's an app you can download, which is very, very good for migration purposes. I like this one very, very much because at least it helps me during my migration journey to make sure that I passed all the assessment and I'm sure for the migration. So I can use this Data Migration Assistant for all other work. So with this, you can create an assessment prior to every migration. You can create an assessment. So let me, 2016 is done now. So let me copy this one now to this. Yeah. Okay. Is this still downloading? Showing file should be done by now. All right. Funny thing that it shows here on confirm, but I see here looks like it's already done. Oh yeah, there you go. There's it down here. I wasn't seeing it. So copy, and I'll just copy it to the server. All right. So with Data Migration Assistant, you have the option to create an assessment and access the server, the database, to make sure that it's migration ready. So I could decide that I don't want to do a migration. I just want to do an assessment, and I create a project called Adventures Work Assessment. You know, assessment. Okay, and what type of migration do you want to do? As database engine, the source is SQL Server, and I want to migrate to Azure, right? So that's the plan. Okay, so once you do that, you can create an assessment, and it's going to do what? Check for database compatibility, it's checked for feature priority, and benefit from new features that are coming up, right? That's the beauty with this. So next, you're going to ask me now to connect to my local machine. I can connect to that, and the name is, let me just verify the name one more time. Okay, this one is done. So let me just connect before I go back to that. CSAT distancing. Okay, so PB SQL 3. All right, so SQL 3. All right. Okay. What type of authentication method do you want to use? Windows or SQL Server authentication? The same thing. I want to use Windows authentication, and I can make a connection. Once I connect, I'm able to see all the databases that I have in there. The Ventures work is not there because I haven't restored it. So I'm going to pause with this one here because I was just doing this to wind some time. So you see here that this migration now is done. So that's all. Once you click OK, and you go back to the portal, go on overview, you can see the database is now sitting in the cloud, and you can literally connect to this database. Like you see, it's also showing up here already. If you have data in here, you can access the data just like any ordinary database, right? As simple as that. So that's the simplest way of doing a migration that you can actually leverage. Now, but if this is not what I really want, prior to migration, I step it up to a very high pricing tier, which is also very expensive, just so that the migration goes faster. If this is not what I want, post-migration, we talked about optimization, post-migration optimization. You want to make sure that the resources are deployed rightly. So I know this is not the right resource group that should be, sorry, not the right pricing tier. So I want to scale this one back to the right pricing tier. So just going back to configuration, you have the option to scale this database down. So right now, this database is going to cost me $75 every month. I don't want that because I don't need that. So I'm just going to go down to the basic pricing tier, which drops down to $4 a month, and apply. That's it, right? You scale it down. During the migration, you can scale it up, and then when you're done, you just scale it down. However you want to do it, that's fine, all up to you. So that's all I wanted to show you as far as this method is concerned. Any question on this method before I move forward? Any question? Okay, so if there's no question, it means this is fully understood. Now let's look at the next method, which is using data.
1 second, sir. 1 second.
Okay, yes.
So I'm asking this to help people
Yes.
understanding. So can you share any possible reasons why people would want to use any of these methods to migrate? What would be the determining factors in these options of migration? Can you share that real quick? Maybe it will help somebody.
Yes, so the determining factors is actually the size of your database, right? What are the size of a database that you're migrating? This method works very well with small databases. 2, you also want to think about the downtime. What's the amount of downtime you want to use that you can leverage? If you start thinking about downtime, I might want to go with replication, because replication is a seamless migration process where you set up a replication job and it migrates data to the cloud. During the migration, users can still access the data and it keeps replicating. Once you're done, you just stop the replication, wait a little minute for everything to sync, you're good. So that also plays a role. Secondly, also, you might want to choose a method like data migration assistant that gives you an assessment. At least you are quite sure that that an assessment has been done and that the migration will be successful. This is only when it has to deal with SQL databases. Now, if we are dealing with migrating virtual machines, now we have to choose another method, which is like Azure Migrate, which now actually can do a full a system scan and to detect all available virtual machine and make sure that they are migration ready before you can go ahead and migrate them. So these are some of the reasons why you might want to decide what method to choose. Yeah. All right, does that answer the question, Moses?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
That's
all right.
for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. For some reason, it's not a primary data. Something this small is trying to mess me up. Trying to just get a venture work database. All right. So this looks like this did not work that well. So let me just.
Maybe you should have downloaded the one that just says AdventureWorks 2016.bak. You download.
I thought I did. I didn't do that. I thought I did downloaded that one.
You can double check and go to your download.
Let me just go on. Let me just get this one more time. Okay, this is done in 12 seconds. Okay, let's get this one. I want to use because AdventureWorks has more tables and at least an assessment is good on that. Okay, so this is done. So show me database. Okay, so it is here. Let me copy this. Copy and just remove these ones. All right. Okay. Just give it a moment. I see you have like 30 minutes. Okay, cool. So I think I should.
And you have a lot of time. That's good.
You were very gracious with me this morning, Moses. That's good. Thank you.
Thank Foster and Michael.
Mike.
No,
Yes.
Moses, you had enough time. It's just that the first part of it, the introduction, the welcome, whatever, took most of your time.
Yeah, we should have made time available for the meet and greet. So
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
meet and greet
that's
took part of your time. That's right.
yeah,
introduction.
yeah.
Okay.
You
But
had
it's
an
okay.
hour, 30 minutes as well.
It's okay. All right. Dennis,
okay.
take it away.
All right. Okay. Now let's see. Now let me. Okay. I know why this was not working. I instead of taking the restore, I think I took the attach. Huh? I might not. It looks like. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I see what was wrong. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this should go quite fast, hopefully. All right. Okay, So, so I'm just going to go one step back just so that I have, and make sure that it sees that the database is there now. So if I make a connection right now, I see that our ventures work is there, right? So I can add that database to my source and start an assessment. Let's just do a quick assessment of that database to see, is it migration deployment ready or not? If there are any roadblocks that we need to fix, this is the time that you need to fix it. And you can see that's done. Well, AventureWorks is a very small database. In real world, this might take a little bit long and you have more features you need to fix before you migrate. So here is telling you unsupported features that will not be supported once you move to the cloud are what? SQL Server agent jobs, which is some of the features that are not supported. SQL Server agent jobs are not supported in PaaS. The only way you can support agent jobs will be to migrate to an Azure managed instance where you can run agent jobs, or migrate this to a virtual machine with SQL Server installed, and you'll be able to run the virtual agent jobs. If you still want to run agent jobs, you have the option to use Elastic Pool, Elastic jobs, and it will still do that for you, right? So you can see that it's not. Reporting services is not supported. We talked about the fact that these features are not supported in the cloud. Now, what else? Compatibility issues. Are there any compatibility issues that we might face if you move to that? Full text search is not supported, right? Has changed since 2016. So it says here, many full text search options and settings have changed. Therefore, when you upgrade to that, some of the settings might not be notified. We recommend you to test your application that leverages full text search. So if you have any application that is leveraging this, you might want to test it, because once you move it, it will not be compatible to that, right? So out of all these 130 compatibility checks, there's only one that was not. So at least right now, I'm quite sure that my migration will be successful, because there are no road blockers that will stop me from doing that, right? So you can export this migration, or you can actually go ahead and save it. You have the option to just upload to Microsoft Azure Migrate, which will then do the migration for you. But for this, I'm not going to use that Microsoft Migrate. I don't have time for that, right? So, but if this is another method, you can literally just upload, because it has passed the test. You just go there and it will do that for you. But for this method here, I'm actually going to use data migration assistant for my migration work, right? So I'll go back here now, and instead of doing an assessment, I will do an actual migration, and I will just call this one here migration _ adventures work. All right, so it's also from a SQL Server. We're migrating to an Azure SQL Server. What are we migrating? We're migrating schemas and data, right? So you have the option, you can migrate schema only or data only. For now, we're doing schema and data. For you to migrate schema and data, you need to make sure the database is already present in the cloud, right? So I'm going to leverage this database that we already created called the test, just for the purpose of this migration. But you could as well create another database, a similar database, an empty database. Pay attention to that. And because this data migration assistant does not migrate the database, it migrates just the schema and the data inside the database. So the database must be there already. All right, so that's what I want to do. So create, so connect. I need to connect to the server that I have. So let me just go ahead and get a copy of connect. The server is this. No, this is a SQL server. This is a database. The server is this one. And then I have the server name. So, oh, this one's done already. So I got the server name here. So I have, go back, no. So I have here. All right, so put a server name in here. I don't want to encrypt the connections, because it's going to go with encryption, and I didn't enable all that, so I'll just leave it like that. You can also trust certificate. If you go with trust certificate, you have to have the certificate installed on both of them. So for now, I'm just going to, oh, sorry, this is actually the source. Sorry, I'm mistaken. This is the source. So I have to first connect to the source, connect. And what database do you really want to migrate? So this is the one I want to migrate, Adventures Work. Unfortunately thing, you cannot migrate two databases at one. You only have one at a time with this method. So you select the database that you want to migrate. Assessment, I don't want to do any assessment because I've already done the assessment. So I'm going to uncheck this. Assess data before migrating. I don't want that, so I'll just get the database that I want to migrate. And next. So now I have to connect to the target. This is where I have to provide my Azure SQL Server in here and connect via SQL authentication. The password was student, and password is password 1. All right, encrypt connection. I don't want to encrypt the connections for now. Just do very simple. And it already picks up the only available database in there, which is on compatibility level. These are some of the good things with moving to the cloud, is that you don't have to worry about compatibility. If you're moving a database from any compatibility level, Microsoft automatically adapts the compatibility level when you move. All right, so it sees that the compatibility level of this database, Ventures Work, is 130. So once you move, it will move to the server under this database with the same compatibility level. So next. So it's preparing the database schemas.
Hey, Dennis, 1 second, please, while you're
Yes.
working on this. So
Yes.
please, when you're doing these at enterprise level, please, you want to encrypt during this process. It's just maybe because it's demo. Please, when you're actually doing this, encrypt it for security reasons.
Yeah, yeah, right. Because you want to make sure that the data as leaving your on-premise environment to the cloud is encrypted, is secured, and so on. But for this demo, I just don't want to do that. So, all right. So this one here, I can generate a script for all to script out all the schemas. So it's scripting out all the schemas. And once we do that, first of all, the schemas need to be deployed before the data. So you can see here, we're going to script and deploy the schema. And once that is done successfully, we will then select the table and migrate the data. All right, so the process has to go through that part. Yeah.
So while waiting for that, Mo, you said when we're doing this in an enterprise or production, you should encrypt that connection. Is it encrypting just the connection or the database, the data and the schema?
So in the process of moving your data from on-premises, it's actually moving through the internet. So you want to secure it. You know, that process, anything can happen. So it's just to be safe. You want to click that option that Dennis did not select. It's okay for the purpose of this demo. I just want to make sure that when you're doing this, you want to encrypt it during that movement of on-premises to Azure.
Yeah, I want to understand if we're encrypting the connection or is it the data?
It is the connection. You're securing the movement during the transportation between on-prem to the cloud.
Okay.
That's really the
yeah. And the good thing with this is that you don't need a decryption method to decrypt it once the data is back in the cloud. It's just during that time that you're moving it that you encrypt the connection. In case someone successfully hack into that and get access to the data will be encrypted and the individual will not be able to access.
So when you encrypt the connection, does it affect the database? Does it have any impact on any encryption on the database as well, on the data?
No, I don't think it has any, because you are actually, it's just the entire connections over the internet, because this is actually what is going on. It doesn't have any any impact on the data itself. But once that's what I'm saying, once the data finally gets deployed, it is not encrypted, except you enable encryption on the database, like we just turn on encryption, but it's just the data in transit is encrypted.
Gotcha.
All right, so you see here, it scripted all the schemas for me, and I can really just deploy the schemas. Once the schemas are deployed, This goes very fast. Once we're done with the schemas, the next thing that we'll have to do will be the tables and the migration. So literally, once we get to the migration, I'm going to move on to the next method of migration, and we will come back to this later. So let's just leave this here while the schemas are being deployed. Just remember that when we're done here, the next thing that I need to do is move the tables and migrate them finally, which will maybe take a couple of minutes. So in view of time, I would like, with your permission, I would like to move on to the next method of migration. All right. Okay. So we have touched two different methods of moving the data from on-premise to the cloud. Well, the last method I actually want to look at is replication. So if I'm dealing in an environment that I know business continuity and downtime is not, it's highly valued, and I have to make sure that I pay attention to that, I can use replication. And we all know of replication technology. Replication replicates your data from the on-premise to the cloud. So we set it up just like we set up a regular replication, but the only difference right now is the subscriber. Your subscriber will be your Azure SQL database, sorry, Azure SQL Server that will subscribe to your on-premise environment and replicate the data, right? So for this method, I'm just going to use transactional replication for this. For this, you can use any other replication method you want, but I'm going to use transactional replication for this. So let me just put this on the other screen so that I can be watching while it's going on. If it's done, I will bring it back. All right. Take some time to get this. Okay, so for us to do that, it's as simple as setting up replication, which every replication starts with a distributor. We need to set up a distribution database and move on there. So I'll go ahead here and under replication, so which is replication, create my distribution. So wizard open for me to create a distribution, and I'm creating a distribution on this database. And I'm just going to leave the snapshot folder on the default location. You have the option to change the folder if you want. And you can just give a distribution database. So I'll just add a DB in front of that. For this distribution database, your data files and your log files are kept on these two different locations. You have the option to also change it if you want. Now, that is it. I'll create my distribution. So it enables distribution on this database. And for this, what I'm going to use in replication technology, we have the push and the pull subscription. I'm going to use the push subscription for this demo, but you can also set it up however you want. So the next thing that I need to do right now is create a publisher that will publish a particular database, which will then be replicated. All right, so I right click on that. Sorry. And I can, hold on here, we can actually expand it. And I create a new publication. And the type of publication I will be using will be publishing this database. And just like migrating, you only migrate, you're publishing just the schemas and the data, not the database. So the database must be present on the destination server. So I'm using transactional replication for this purpose. You have all the different replication type that you can select from, but I'm going with transactional replication. Next. So so what do you want to publish? You know, you want tables, top residue views, schemas, functions, and all that. But for this purpose of demo and in view of time, I'm just going to take only tables, which comes together with their own schemas, you know, and publish that. So here you can do a filter. I'm just going to skip through this. Do you want to create it, schedule it? I want to create it immediately. and I have to go ahead and configure the snapshot here. So I'll use, let me actually use my own account. So I'll go here, see. So I use a password. So I just provided a password of an account that in generally this account will be your own service account that you would have already created for this purpose. So I'm just going to use an account that I already know. And next, and then you go ahead and create your publication. So I'm just going to call this Adventures Work pub finish. In the meantime, let's see if this one is done. Yes. So why this is creating, you can see that it's creating the publication and it's adding the article. So here, every single table that you are publishing is called an article. So you have to publish those tables, then those subscribers will be able to subscribe to those tables and read the information from the table. Right. So I'll keep this one here and go back to our old method where we were doing data migration assistant. You can see that here all the schemas have been migrated. They've all been deployed. So the next thing that I need to do right now is the data. So I'll just go and migrate the data. Right? So it tells you exactly here, if there are any other tables that you don't want to migrate, you can go ahead and uncheck it. So I see a couple of things here that says not matching table. No, it's not ready. Matching table not found in the target. So for some reason here, not all the tables were ready to move. And some of these that were not ready, let's see, what are these? These are system tables. Okay, these are system tables. The last ones are system tables. These ones are okay, so I'm just going to go ahead with the ones that actually, okay, and they also have no, okay, this one has a row count, but it's not matching. All right, but I'm just going to go ahead first with the ones that actually um, um, are ready to move. And once you're done with this, you have the option to come back and redeploy the schemas to, if there's still has a problem where some of these are not, you might want to check that through an assessment. But assessment did not actually give me any of these. So I'm suspecting that the schemas did not match well. That's why it's not seeing it on the target database. All right, so so that's it. I just click start migration, and this is going to take a couple of minutes to migrate all these databases. And once it's done, you see the database has been successfully migrated through these different methods. If there's any issues, failed migration, this will show you here. All right. So this all that you require to do as far as migrating your database from an on-prem SQL Server to an Azure SQL database using Data Migration Assistant. So I'm going to leave this method here. I'm done with this. When it's ready, I will show you that the migration was successful. And then you see it's already moving quite fast. Some of them are already migrating. So let me go back to our method of replication. All right, so you can see here on the replication method, this is the third method that we're using. The articles have been successfully been added. A snapshot has been created. Our publication has been created. So the next thing that will require us to do will be now to add a subscriber that will subscribe to these publications. So you can see that it's the, if I refresh this, you see that the publication is there. It needs a subscriber. Before I do that, I would like to first pre-create the database that I'm trying to migrate to. So you can see here on this server, I want to migrate to a database. I have to create, I don't want to put it here because it's already there. So I'll just create a brand new database. And we're created on the same server. So all we need is a name. So I'll just call it Adventures World 2016. database. And for the pricing tier, I will make it a general pricing tier just so that it's faster for me. And then if I want to change it, you have the option to click configure and you change the pricing tier for the database. So for now, I will leave it like this. I can even give a little bit of more power just so that it goes faster for me. Apply. All right, so that's what I need. Networking. I can't do any changes because we're doing this on an existing server. Do you need to have, I want an empty database, so give me an empty database. The collation sequence is the default, which is the Latin for English language. So review it. So this is going to cost me roughly $1,300 every month if I leave it to run like that. So I create.
Just to chip in quickly, we have
Yes.
10 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
I think I should be able to get it done in 10 minutes with the few questions. All right. Okay. So while this is going on, the next thing that I need to do on this is to add subscribers, right? Add a new subscription to this. So click on next and next. So we see we're adding it to the subscriber, the publisher that we already created, and we're adding a subscription. We click next. What type of subscription do you have? Run all distribution, run all agent at a distributor, which is on this server. It will become a push subscription. Or do you want to run them on the subscriber, which will be a pool subscription? I will run them locally for a push subscription. There's really no reason why I'm choosing this method, but I just want it here, run it here. Okay, so next. So the next thing I have to do is to add my subscriber. So here, to add subscriber, I just need to add the server, the Azure SQL Server database that was created, and I authenticate, connect. You can see the server has been added. What database do you want to use? Thank God, this one is already done. So you see the database that I just created is there. You can see it here also. Database deployment is completed. And if I check under the server, you can see the database is actually there. All right, that's a database. So it gives me the option to be able to select that database. I'm migrating to this server and I want the schemas and data to be pushed on this. So next. So security here, you need to provide the credentials, the account credentials that you want to use for that purpose in the cloud. So here, I'm going to use the student account that I created and the password. Password one, right? Okay, that's it. Oh, hold on here. Run the following Windows account. No, not Windows account. This is not a Windows account, but it has to be using. Okay, all right. So this is actually the account that I have on the local machine. So sorry, I did this wrong. So CTS. Okay. So you have to provide the account locally. And here you need to provide the account on the subscriber, which is then the student that I was supposed to use. All right. So we have all the credentials. Everything is set up well locally. This is where the distributor is. This account will push it out, and this account will provide the credentials to connect. That's it. Next. Next. Create a subscription. At the end of the wizard, create the subscription. All right. Okay. Perfect. And that's all. That's all. So once this, okay, so it's done. So what we need to do right now is, let me see if this other one is done. Okay, so we see here 77 objects have been migrated. It's still migrating, it's still processing it, but you see that most of it have already been migrated. Now, if we now see, let me see if we can see any data right now on this. If I refresh this now and check the, Check the databases. You see we have the two databases, but what about this? This is the one that we use for the first method, and the tables. Taking time to expand. Come on. All right. It's taking so long. See, this is still doing it. Still not completed. But it has successfully migrated all of them, but still maybe running up. I'm wondering why this is taking so long to expand the tables. All right, but generally it will expand the table. You'll see all the tables that have already been migrated over there. All right, so this is actually it. So if you now check here, if you check now on the subscription, you're going to realize that you now have mpit.database.windows.net as a subscriber to this subscription, where the data now will then be migrated to this database. If only it allows me to do it fast. It's taking forever to expand. But guys, this is eventually, this is what will happen once everything synchronizes and you have your database migrated. So these are the three different methods I wanted to show you. But there are other methods that you can use, but I will say these are the most simplest method that you can actually use to migrate your data. So with that, I would like to stop here and answer a couple of questions because I'm almost running out of time.
Awesome.
Yeah, Dennis, you talked about when you were creating the subscriber,
yes.
You said you choose the push subscription, but it's then you talked about the other option of pool subscription. Is pool subscription actually supported in the cloud?
It is supported. I might want to check that, but I think it is supported. I've always gone with a push subscription, but I'm okay if anyone has an idea about that. But I think the pool subscription is also supported.
Okay. It's supposed to be supported. Like you said, I think I want to double check that. A lot of times these have always been pushed, but it's a
since we're migrating from on-prem to the cloud.
Yeah, I always go with a push, but I haven't really checked that if it's supported.
It should be supported.
I think it should be. Okay.
It's the same configuration, the same like when you're doing your on-prem. So I don't see anything that should stop the data from being from the Azure. So it should work.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Any question, guys?
Yes, Doc.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry, you said that SQL Server agent job is not supported in is it in the cloud or in platform as a service?
In the not in the Azure SQL database. The SQL Server agent job is not. When you say platform as a service, you are also including the managed instance where the SQL Server agent job is supported. So it's strictly on an Azure SQL database that you don't have SQL Server agent jobs. But you can also manage elastic pools and create elastic jobs, and it will still run that. If you definitely have some jobs that needs to be scheduled, you can go through that route. So there's a workaround about that. But if you only have SQL Server databases, then SQL Server agent jobs are not supported.
Okay. Then another question is, which of the methods of migration will enable you to migrate many databases at once?
That's a good question, though. Which method will enable me to migrate multiple databases at once?
Exactly.
You know, I've never thought about that one. Yes, Moses.
Yes. So you can migrate multiple databases using if you export the application tier, you can export them multiple tiers and save your script and just deploy them at once. That's one option. For some reason, I'm not sure why in Dennis' demo, why I was not able to see the option of selecting multiple databases. Maybe I've not tried that in the cloud, but I know when you're migrating from one location to another, you can actually select multiple databases using data migration assistance. I'm not sure why we see that option there.
Yeah, but so this one actually,
that is done on-prem, Moses. I've tried that myself. On-prem, you can select multiple databases. Like when you're migrating from one server to another on-prem, it's 100 databases. You can do that, but to the cloud, it only allows you to select one database at a time.
So, so for that reason, I will go with the option of exporting the tier and then
importing.
That's one option.
Tiawi, I think you talked about the backpack process during migration. Sorry, I missed that a few times. But at first, when I saw it, you can use that to migrate multiple databases.
The backpack process?
Yeah. Yes, that's one of the options. If you right-click on the database and go to tasks, there is also an option there where you are able to, use backpack. So if you, I forgot another one.
That's the export data tier application.
Well, I think you can use a Docker container to migrate multiple databases at the same time.
Docker container.
Okay, so there's this option. So you can extract the data tier application. You can export the data tier application, and it should be able to allow you to extract multiple databases and then deploy them, to the cloud. Man, my long man is here. It's making a lot of noise. Okay, any other questions?
I think I have a contribution about migrating the multiple databases. I run into a situation where one application was using two databases, meaning the application was using cross-database queries between these two databases. So if you use the data tier, because the data tier actually gives you that option to get that backpack for one database, right? If you use that and you try to deploy that database to Azure, it is not going to let you, because it's telling you that, okay, this application was using two databases and the databases are interconnected. So exporting the data tier will not let us do that, because you can only do one at a time.
This is really a very good question that I'm personally not really investigated extensively on that. I will really need to look into that to see what other methods are available for us to do that. But of course, I mean, the limitation that we are having here is because we're moving to a single databases. But if we are moving to a virtual machine or a managed instance, then we have more options that we can use. And then it becomes just like an on-premise where data migration assistant will eventually work just like a regular migration. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Any
Are we
more
good
questions?
with the questions?
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you.
So, you may want to stop the recording now.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Dennis.
All right, Foster, please go ahead and just give a roundup as we.
Okay. So, thank you, guys. Thank you, Moses, Joe, and Dennis for the brilliant presentation. Yes.
Foster, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
1 second. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And
1 second is over.
Yeah, I know.
That's true.
I realized that during my presentation, you remember we deployed, I was thinking maybe Dennis was going to do it. I just want to make sure that, people here, they know that part. After we created a virtual machine, we did not really show you guys how to connect to it. So this is a virtual machine that we deployed that time. So if you have a virtual machine like whatever we did, I think it was under demo resource group. And if we go to MPIT 2020,
right there.
All right, so you have to click on connect. Once you click on connect, you have to identify which of this port you want to connect to. So we selected RDP. If you download the RDP file, it should allow you to be able to connect to the VM. So we didn't do that. I just wanted to make sure that we know how to be able to connect to the virtual machine after we're done after we are done with whatever we created. So once you provide the password, it should launch the virtual machine. So just 1 second, Foster, and once I'm done with this, we can, take it away with the break. All right, I just pasted my password, and then if it's the first time you're connecting, you should be able to connect. Oh, it's opening on my second room. Oops. There you go. So I'm connected to the virtual machine. So the same thing that we did. So if you create a new virtual machine, at the end of the day, you have to click on connect, and there's an option to actually download the RDP connection and provide the right credentials, and you should be able to connect. That's what I wanted to share. I know we did not get to that point. Thank you, Foster, and continue.
You're welcome. Also, you guys can check on the chat. Annie sent a link which you can enable you to migrate multiple databases to the cloud. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Annie.
Yes. So
thank you.
I just wanted to say
just
thank
for research
you.
purposes. Sorry.
Okay. Just wanted to say thank you, Moses, Joe, and Dr. Kiawe for the brilliant presentation this morning. So for now, we're going to be taking a 45 minutes break. And as Moses said this morning, we didn't have meet and greet or a good presentation. So I think he proposed that during the break, people can bring their food while we sit. We'll put on our videos, and then we talk, we present ourselves, and then we know each other better, because we didn't do that from the start. So for now, we're going to be taking a 45 minutes break. Actually, we're supposed to have been on break already, so we're expected to be back at 3:15. So
yep.
I don't know, Moses, if there's anything to add to that about the meet and greet or knowing each other.
Sure. So for the meet and greet, oh man, I'm still recording. So real quick, before we talk about the meet and greet, so everything that we have talked about, I just wanted to throw it out there so we know. So we're actually starting a new Azure training that will really walk people through. We didn't have enough time, obviously, to walk through some of the things that we're learning here today. So from the 19th of next month, we're starting a new training that is going to be from 0 level knowledge of Azure to advanced level knowledge. And if you're interested in that training, please make sure you go on our website at mortgageprioritysolution.com and send us a message. We know that you are interested. We'll send you more information and how you need to sign up for that training, okay? So I just want to throw that out there. And of course, we have a lot going on today. After the break, we're going to be having a guest who is already here with us, Mr. Blake, and he will talk to us about, how you can really be successful, what hiring managers are looking for, what recruiters are looking for, how you can get yourself, the right success that you need. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording for now, and I'll allow Michael and Foster coordinate our social moments and cocktail lunch, whatever.
So I think